Welcome to Presentation 24. The subject for today is going to be creating ASCII characters. The ASCII character that we're going to be creating we need them to support the displays. And that's part of our Layer 3 architecture. The agenda for today is as follows. First, we're going to talk about the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, which is the ASCII 2 standard. Next, we're going to talk about character creation, how we go about creating characters that can be displayed. And finally, we're going to create our framework of characters. So let's talk a little bit about the ASCII. ASCII is a character encoding standard used to represent text in computers and other digital devices. It assigns a number value that's between 0 and 127 to each character, such as letters, digits, punctuation marks, and control codes. For example, we have the following. In the ASCII standard, the A, capital A, is represented by 65. The A is represented by number 97. By the way, these are decimal numbers. The 0 is represented by 48. Space is represented by 32. And line feed, for example, new line is represented by 10. Basically, what it amounts to is if you want to send a character to a controller, what you do is you send a number, an ASCII number that represents that character. For example, if you want to send an A to the controller, a capital A, you send a 65. If you want to send a lowercase a, then you send a 97. Now, most displays require you to create custom characters for rendering text. Hence, you need to develop your own character set, and it needs to be compatible with the ASCII character system. So basically, you're going to get a number 65 that represents an A. But now, it's your job to figure out what is that you have to send the display so it can light up the correct pixels so you display an A. This is, here you have the standard ASCII standard. For example, the 0 is 48. So if you get a number 48 and they tell you it's an ASCII value, then you know that it's a 0. If you get a 61 or a hex 3C, then it's a less than, or you can have a capital L for a 76, or lowercase b by a 62, a tilde by 126. So basically, what this amounts to is you're going to get an ASCII code, and now you have to figure out how you render that ASCII code and how you render it to the display as an A, B, an X, or whatever letter is represented. And that's what we're going to try to figure out here, give you a methodology for doing that. So here we go. So this is my own rendition of the ASCII character. So I decided to use a 5 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words of 7 bits each to represent each of the ASCII character. So you send me an ASCII character and I'm going to use 5 words of 7 bits each to represent it. For example, let's assume you send me an ASCII 33. But before I go any further, I should explain something that I have here on the right hand side. So we have an array, which is a static constant of charge. That's what I called it, of charge. And the name is ASCII 5x7, and it's a two-dimensional array. The first element is going to represent the ASCII value, and the next element is going to be the five words, 7 bits each, that represent that number. So, for example, let's look at ASCII 33. So let's start from here. So we get an ASCII 33, which is exclamation mark. So I've created exclamation marks. So if I go here to this array, to the element 33 of this array, what I'm going to find is 00, 00, 5F, 00, and 00. Now let's look at it pictorially. So 0, 0, 5S is this number here, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, and then I have 0, 0. Now what I want to do is I want to send these elements, these five words, 7 bits each, from the controller to the microcontroller, and I want the microcontroller to light up a pixel when it sees a 1 and do nothing when it sees a 0, or make sure the pixel is off. So this is what we're going to do. Now let's go back and look at another element. Let's say element, let's look at the $36. So the 36 is going to be here. This is the representative of a $. That's element 36. So in the comments I actually put what element of the array was that. So that's the first component of the two-component array, the first element of this array. So 36 is 24, 2A, 7F, 2A, and 12. And that's what we see here. So again, if we're required to, if we get a 36 and the idea is to display it, then what we do is we're going to do it to this array. We're going to put the number 36, which represents the ASCII code. It gets us to this point, and then we're going to transmit these 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 words. And the outcome should be like this, because the WIFI program the display to light up pixels when they get a 1 and to turn it off when they get a 0. So let's keep going. So I've accounted for all the ASCII values. For example, this is a 43, and that's 08, 08, 3E, 08, and 08. So let's continue. So now this is the size of these ASCII codes. I made them up. You can decide to be this. You could make them maybe 7 words or 8 words instead of 5, and then 8 bits. So you can make this square any way you want. And not only that, but you could actually put any figure you want. So this is just a methodology for being able to display the characters. And so we continue here with all the different ASCII characters. For example, the A would be 7E. A is number 65. You have 7E, 11, 11, 11, and 7E. So that's what. So when you say these five words to the display, it's going to take column by column in the display. It's going to light up the pixels that have in the message a 1, and it's going to turn off the ones that are 0. So let's keep going here. So I'm showing you that how I designed this for for each of these characters. So, and one thing you have to make sure is when you make your table, you have to make sure that the position of the character represents to the ASCII value, because you're going to get an ASCII code that you have to display. That's something you have to do. So we keep going here until we get to the end. And so what I have here is a my framework LCD font 8x7. I typed it correctly this and then I left it. But really what I'm creating here is standard ASCII of 5 lines, 7 bits each. And that's what they call the font. And we can create larger words, smaller, or even when we get this one, instead of lighting 1 pixel, we could decide to light up 4 pixels for each of these every time you get a 1 here. You could get a much larger number. So let's look at our framework. So I mean, this whole exercise was to create the framework that I'm going to be able to load it, and in the next presentation you're going to see how we render these letters. So here we have our framework, and this framework, let me back up. So this framework basically corresponds to this. This is the framework. This is the standard ASCII values, and then I've created a framework that shows all these words here. So you can have it right there. So that brings us to the end of this presentation. So today I talked about the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, ASCII standard. Next, we created characters to represent each of the standard code for information exchange. So for each of the ASCII character, so we had ASCII character, we created a way to represent that ASCII character in the display. And finally, we created the character ASCII framework, which we are going to load in all our programs and use that to create the display characters. We'll create them in display characters. So anyhow, this is a short presentation, and the idea was to give you a little bit of an idea what is the ASCII standard, because in the next display we're going to have to use this. So anyhow, thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation.